everybody. We are back with the same episode that I just had to have an intermission for. My apologies. Alright. Derek bought tickets at the nearby customer service counter. There was no humoring the possibility of you buying your own ticket or paying for both. That wasn't a hill to die on today. Then you were ready for another ride. You poked your head inside the cabin. Only a handful of other travelers were nestled between the 4 rows of seats. From the seat cushions to the smell, the shuttle was immensely more agreeable than the bus, but you were even able to get spots side by side this time. Derek, though, wasn't any more of a mood to talk. The physical atmosphere might have improved, but the discomfort he felt on the inside was still eating at him. He could only sit in silence. For all the gnawing tension, you did make it. The shuttle inevitably came to a stop in Sunset Bird parking lot. The car was switched off, and the driver gave permission for the guests to leave. While the other riders leisurely shuffled around the bags, sat by their feet, and readjusted their hats, you and Derek hopped right off into freedom. Derek took a couple stumbling steps after his leap from the car, and then he stood in one place. He watched for your next move, counting on your guidance to finish his journey. It was time to switch roles. Sunset Bird was your turf, not his. He spun in a single circle, scanning the area for clues as to which of the multiple big, flat, mostly empty parking lots you had landed in. When you swung back around, you got a glimpse of behind the shuttle that spotted the corner of the grocery store. You couldn't have been closer to home. We're almost there, this way. You waved your hand over your shoulder and towards the main street, to the rally, your single troop for a charge.
Nice.
Nice work, Nori. You made a break for it and launched across the blacktop. You ran with him. There was no time to lose. You had a ticking clock at your heels. If you weren't fast enough, Mrs. Suarez would beat you back to Derek's house. You flew out of the parking lot and dashed down the sidewalk you'd seen a million times before. From there, it was a turn into the residential area. Before you knew it, you had arrived at the top of the hill on your street. You were so close. The decline of the road propelled your steps even faster. Derek almost crashed into you when you both dove towards the entryway of your house. You caught yourself by bracing your hands against the front door. It took a second for you to separate your stinging palms from the wood so you could get your key out, but you got it in the lock, turned the key, and pulled. Finally, huffing and puffing, you stumbled inside. You were home. After everything, you almost didn't know what to expect when you laid your eyes on the scene, but it was your living room exactly as it was every day of your life. Not a thing was out of place. The low hum of the fridge was the only sound. I know. It's my medicine time. Elizabeth clearly hadn't torn the house apart in an emotional rampage, although you didn't know what her room looked like. Nori? You snapped your head to the sound, and there she was, standing on the first step of the stairs, Elizabeth. Her mouth remained open despite not saying anything else. An eyebrow was arched high on her forehead. Hi. Hi? Wait, is that why you were calling to tell me you were coming back way early? No. You explained everything directly. You joked about the whole debacle. You awkwardly admitted what was going on. You casually broke down. We're gonna explain everything directly. There was no point in beating around the bush, not after how much you went through to do what you did. Me and Derek wanted to see if you were okay because you were alone here on Father's Day. She let out a single derisive bark of laughter, and more was threatening to spill out. It wasn't the worst reaction you could have gotten, all things considered. How did that even come up? The tip of Derek's foot scuffed at the wooden floor Ma kept sparkling clean. He meekly confessed his part in the debacle. I wanted Nora to spend the night at my place so I could make sure she wasn't sad or something. That's what I was hoping for anyway, but it wasn't a great plan. He couldn't help offering an apologetic glance to you. The mocking humor that colored her face was wiped away in an absolutely deep pan way. She said 2 words. That's adorable. That was enough to end the conversation. Derek had no comeback, and your sister simply stared blankly. Was this a mistake? Should we have not come? Does that mean you're okay? Come on, how are you really doing, Elizabeth? You didn't speak either. Does that mean you're okay? A seriously uncomfortable 3-way staring contest commenced. You kept your focus locked on your sister. She did the same to you. Derek flip-flopped between Elizabeth and you. Then Elizabeth caved. She pinched the bridge of her nose and groaned dramatically. Fine, you kids win. Today was annoying, and not because I care that I only get to have 2 moms and can't celebrate Daddy Day. It's because every year everybody is Everybody else is busy and I'm stuck doing nothing. And so, no, I wasn't in the sunshine and rainbow kind of mood, and it didn't help that you ended up getting off that boat either. And then he called me. She whipped an accusatory finger right at Derek's chest. This guy was able to throw you a party out of nowhere and decided while doing that to give me a ring while I was stuck in the house like a loser. Rude. That's why I hung up. He smirked. Her smirk returned, much more earnest than before. Didn't think you were gonna race across the city to come keep me company. That kind of affection teasing from your only older sister warmed your heart. It was special and all the discomfort was worth it. You'd already tell today would be something to laugh at for years to come. Derek remained serious. He blinked in rapid succession and mustered up the will to continue his regretful appeal. Elizabeth, I'm really sorry for not thinking about this more. Elizabeth cut that right off. She swished her hand in front of her face, trying to physically bat away Derek's sentiment. Don't be, please. Save your energy. She settled the tips of her fingers across the center of her forehead, her other hand resting on her hip as she jutted on her side. It's not your job to babysit me. You're not my big brother, and I'm not one you like. Elizabeth was as sassy as ever, and Derek's overly self-reflective maturity seemed childish when cast in that light. A dark red blush grew across Derek's cheeks. But he smiled. It was a good reminder that he demanded a lot more from himself than others. As if for the first time your sister appraised you and Derek, huddled together, sweaty and frumpy from the journey. Oh dear, where are my manners? I've got guests and I haven't even offered them a drink. She shrugged one arm, while sashaying over to the kitchen and opening the fridge. Not very politely, Elizabeth shouted out while sticking her head into the chilled shelves. What do you want?
Thanks.
Just water, please, thanks. What do we want? Do we want water, apple juice, orange juice, tropical juice mix, cola, lemon lime soda? You up? I don't want anything, soy milk. We don't want anything. 2 waters. Okay then, Elizabeth wasn't really asking, she was insisting on rehydrating you. She set 2 bottles of water on the counter. When her hands were free, she reached back into the fridge and snagged the carton of tropical juice, as well as a glass for herself. Elizabeth poured a glass of juice for herself. One more time, Elizabeth, the demure hostess shouted at you from the kitchen. Come and get it. She punctuated the statement by bumping the fridge door shut with her hip, and then she walked back to the living room, taking a sip of her juice. Derek took it upon himself to pick up both your drinks. He went straight to the kitchen, grabbed the drinks, and then returned to you to offer you yours. You accepted it from him. Thank you. It made your sister snicker over the rim of her glass. Her gaze stayed on you a while. She lowered herself slowly down to sit on the floor. You shared a quick look with Derek, but ultimately joined your sister on the ground. The 3 of you arranged yourselves in the small circle shape, each of your little drink in hand. It almost felt like being a kid in kindergarten again. Elizabeth lifted her cup out over the center of the group.
Come on.
For this auspicious occasion, cheers to us. As sarcastic as her tone was, the fun she was having was genuine. Cheers to us. Happy Father's Day. Bad Father's Day. You teased. You lifted your drink. To us. Cheers. He thrusted his own drink out in celebration before bringing it back towards his chest. He twisted off the cap of the water and gulped down about half of it in one go. Derek idly wiped his mouth when Elizabeth asked a flat question. How did you actually get here? Is Mrs. Sarah's idling in her minivan out there? Derek's reply was perfectly cheery. After the long way there, his spark was finally coming back. No, we took the bus. A bus? And a shuttle. None of the buses go right into Sunset Bird, but we made it. Well, obviously you can see that. Another question. Are you going to be completely grounded for this? Everybody else is out of the house. We're kind of hoping to get back there before they even notice. Oh. Simply shrug. It's worth it. No matter what happens, you felt incredibly bashful. We were on a mission. You're welcome. You're welcome. Elizabeth rested her eyes shut and took another long sip of juice. I won't tell our moms. Thanks. Well, we're all partners in crime. Let's make Father's Day cards. We do want to hang out for it. We should go now. She stretched her legs and arms, spreading out wide. Being bored all day is going to be the least of our worries if Mom's comes in and gives, and you've magically appeared in the living room. Right, instead we got to magically vanish into thin air. Her eyes narrowed, looking between you and Derek. Enjoy what's left of your little sleepover. Derek's mouth dropped open fruitlessly, and he closed it again. He didn't know what to say to that. Finally, he waved and chirped out a generic farewell. Bye, Elizabeth. Well, yeah, see you around. See you around. Winked. Elizabeth folded her arm and rolled her eyes in a stage of annoyance. She couldn't take the smile off her face. With your mission accomplished, the two of you returned to the wide open world. Returning to the parking lot was far more a leisurely trip than your arrival had been. There had been time before takeoff again. You drifted ahead like the lazy white clouds above you. The fluffiness of them made them think of marshmallows. The pale orange 12-seater came into the sight. Parked at the far edge of the lot, you and Derek got your tickets to ride and hopped on. A few scattered tourists in the sun hats and floral patterned shorts and seated throughout the cabin. The small number of people in the space still felt cramped because of the limited room in the car. You could smell their sunscreen in the air, and the slow curving motion. The shuttle pulled out. Derek sat rigidly, silently tapping his pointer fingers against the top of his knees for this entire trip. No words were exchanged by anyone except a few rules and updates mumbled out by the driver. People were tired from their own long adventure out in the world. You could only imagine what the strangers sharing the shuttle bus had been through while barely audible acoustic guitar tracks played on the radio. Eventually, the shuttle arrived. Each person went their separate ways, except for you and Derek, who stayed by one another's side as a pair. He navigated the station with the maps he had kept tucked in the back of his pocket as a guide. And finally, you sat down in the deep blue, well-worn fabric of a city bus seat for the last ride. When the bus pulled out this time, Derek wiped his brow with his wristband. You made it back to Derek City. No mortifying calls would have been made from an overpriced bus stop payphone to beg one of your parents to come get you. Derek slipped lower in his seat and stretched his leg out in the aisle. The bus wasn't even half as full, so making a little extra room for himself wasn't getting in anyone's way this time. On the outside, the sun was still dipping under the horizon, giving the air relief from its sweltering heat. It all came together to make the metal tube of the public transportation less suffocating, totally incomparable to the experience you had at the height of the afternoon. Now it was safe to relax. Derek glanced over his shoulder, staring across the rows of chairs to the front. You just barely caught the small smile on his face. Hey, thanks for thinking about me. I do appreciate all this, I'm glad you were here. This wasn't what I wanted to go. This wasn't how I wanted things to go, but you're still my friend, Derek. It worked out and that's good. Let's not have this kind of thing happen again. Thanks. I'm gonna say I do appreciate all this. Derek turned right around to face you and made a big show of swatting his hand nonchalantly, which pretty much completely precluded it from being a casual gesture. No worries, I'm just happy it worked out. That was the missing piece to complete the picture of relief, getting to be on good terms with Derek again. You couldn't hate him, even if you fought sometimes. I can't believe you took a bus and a shuttle all the way to Sunset Bird, so I could see Elizabeth. Siblings have to look out for siblings, and he looked directly at you. Friends look out for friends. I know that I can count on you to help me out with the bros when I need it. We're a good team, right? I'm here for you too. I can always rely on you. Thanks for holding my hand before. You smiled at him, you bashfully stare at your hands. I'm right here for you too. Yep, you're my gal. You looked at the window, you relaxed in the back of the seat. Derek leaned against your shoulder. You put your arm around Derek's. We're gonna rest our head on Derek's shoulder. Gently, you shifted over to let the side of your face nestle against your seat neighbor. Derek's eyes fluttered closed with a sweet sigh. You were snuggled in for the final leg of the journey, and all you had to do was wait. There was a soft vibration in the back of the bus. It slowly went up on your back. Wow, it slowly went up your spine and all the way down to the tips of your toes. During the ride before, the sensation had frayed at your nerves. Now it was soothing. With every stop that passed, your eyelids grew heavier. If yours wasn't just the fourth one down the line, you might have fallen asleep. You and Derek were the only ones who got off at that point. The two of you hopped from the front of the bus onto the sidewalk. Derek leisurely retracted the familiar path you had gone on with him, matching step for step. It was peaceful, and with how close you had been to dozing off, it was almost felt like you were walking in a dream. Finally, you arrived at the Sarez condo after a long, eventful afternoon away. You may not have lived there, but seeing that door made you feel welcomed and safe. Derek clicked his key into the slot and pulled the handle forward. All traces of sleepiness that had lingered in your eyes were instantly wiped away. Derek unavoidably tripped the wire on a mini explosion. Oh shit. The condo wasn't nearly as empty as it was when you'd left. The whole rest of your family had arrived before you. They were gathered together on the couch and bar stools, except for Nicholas, who had jumped to his feet to launch himself at his brother. His short arms circled around Derek's legs. It was an interaction that had happened dozens, maybe even hundreds of times before. That was a hallmark of their own unique sibling relationship. Derek fulfilled his part of the tradition and stroked Nicholas's hair. At the same time, he offered the rest of his family a laid-back greeting. Hey.
Good evening.
The both of you. Hi.
Welcome.
There was a curious lilt to her tone and a quirk on her lips. Did you have a good afternoon? Derek's eyes darted around. He didn't feel safe letting his gaze settle anywhere in particular. I'd say so, right, Nori? He nodded, tight-lipped. But yeah, we took a bus to Sunset Bird and back here again, you boy. Hell no, we're not. No. Actually, the truth is, yep, we had plenty of fun. Yep, plenty of fun. Wonderful. Mrs. Saras grinned knowingly. She didn't know what she was knowing about, but it was obvious to her that at least something had gone down. Mr. Saras, on the other hand, sighed in complete contentment, simply satisfied that the two of you were in a good mood. Nicholas simply held tight to Derek's jeans the entire time, happy he was there and totally unaware of what the older people were talking about. George stood in between his parents with his arms pressed to his sides. He had been listening with bemusement, his thin eyebrows pinched and his lips pursed. Mrs. Saras stuck her hands on her hips and leveled a gaze at you and her son. I'm sorry to say this as soon as you walk through the door, but it's time to go. We have to get Nori home before it's even later. Oh yeah. With a wink and a grin, Derek scratched the back of his head. You chuckled conspiratorially. We had a great time staying with the Saras family, but we're very much looking forward to seeing your moms and being reunited with your own sibling after a humorously short time apart. There'd be plenty more moments of fun and laughter to come when you were. For better or worse, Derek had made sure this was an occasion worth commemorating. I don't know if I said that right, y'all, but we will be on our last DLC for this stage of the game, and I'll get back to you. Thanks for listening.